So, this one might be a little weird for you. It may be a little different than what you might normally do because it's not exactly creepy. But it is pretty bizarre to me and maybe even some kind of parallel existence, I think. Either way, it's just something that I have to share, and I think you'll appreciate it too. I've been taking the red line every morning for many years now. It's become part of my everyday life. And like many of us, I am a creature of habit and have my routine down to a science. I know exactly what time I have to leave by. I stand in the same spot while I wait for the train, and then sit in the same car in the same spot near the middle doors. And like most commuters, I people watch, and I start to recognize the other regulars on the route. There was a guy who was usually dressed in a suit, carrying a thermos with a picture of a family on it, like one of those cute customized mugs. And there were two older ladies that sat in the back and always had these very animated conversations. There was another guy I only saw occasionally, but he had on some sort of maroon-colored uniform and had a large messenger bag. All normal, everyday people going about their lives. But then there was one girl that I started seeing that caught my attention. She got on 2 stops after me. At first, I noticed her because she looked a lot like me. Same shoulder-length brown hair, similar height and build, and even similar kind of style. That artsy but professional look that says probably works at a gallery or design studio. Real quote from a friend of mine. But I really started paying attention when I realized that she had worn the same outfit 3 days in a row. It was this oversized cream-colored sweater, brown pants, and these unique red boots. At first, you may be thinking, just as I did, that maybe she had multiple versions of the same outfit. I'm guilty of buying the same sweater in different colors if I like it enough. But it wasn't just the same style of clothes. It was the same thing, because her sweater had what appeared to be a coffee stain on it. Her hair was kind of messy too. Either it was down and frizzy, pulled back in a low ponytail, or maybe thrown in a lopsided messy bun, like she couldn't be bothered with it. I remember seeing it, the satin on her sweater, and thinking, same, girl, I've had those days, and I had sympathy for her. This is why I remembered her in the way she looked. But she wore this exact same outfit for 3 days in a row, and I definitely noticed. By the 4th day, I was very fascinated and curious. Same outfit, same coffee stain, same messy bun. She even stood in the same spot in the same way, standing with her weight on her left foot while holding her phone in her right hand. I tried to run it through in my head. Maybe she was staying somewhere other than home and didn't have a change of clothes. Maybe she didn't have much in ways of options. I wasn't sure. Was it interesting to notice? Yeah. But I tried my best to not think about it more than that because I didn't know her situation, right? Part of me did think about taking a picture to make sure I wasn't imagining things, but I also told myself that it would be creepy. You know, taking a picture of a stranger on a train? Yeah, no thanks. But this went on for 2 weeks straight. I still didn't, but that is when I really wanted to take a picture. I started feeling like I was in some weird loop. Like I was going in circles, and until something changed, something differentiated, I would continue this loop. That maybe she was in this weird loop too. Did she see it? Was she aware of it? Because other than the messy hair and stained sweater, she didn't look disheveled, stressed, nothing. She looked normal. I even saw the other regulars, but they seemed to act like she wasn't really there. The old ladies that liked to look at everyone on the train didn't even glance at her. No one said excuse me to her as they passed her since she was standing. So, why was this happening? Why was this girl that I had never seen prior now taking the train daily wearing the exact same thing? Same clothes, same boots, same phone case, silver ring on her middle finger, same posture. Everything was the same, and I swear I seemed to be the only one to notice. I felt like I was losing my mind, or that this was all some huge prank or experiment to see if anyone would notice. Then, one day, I was having one of those mornings. You know the type. My hair refused to cooperate, and I was running low on time, so I just threw it all in a messy clip. I was wearing my old comfortable jeans with the worn spot since I wasn't feeling well. I was still groggy as I was getting ready to leave, and I fumbled my coffee cup while trying to put my phone in my pocket, spilling it down the side of my shirt and sweater. I was already running late, so I didn't have time to change. I just told myself that I would deal with it being a little cold at work and not wear my sweater. My shirt was darker, so I could at least hide it there. So I rushed out the door, now wearing my coffee instead of getting to enjoy it. I got to the train and I sat in my regular spot, and then we stopped where the other girl would get on. And at that moment, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was styled, sailing in soft waves with braids on the sides, all pinned back by a large flower. She was wearing a long-sleeved blue dress and looked so pretty and put together in a way that made my coffee-stained self feel even more disheveled. I was surprised by this change, but also refreshed to see it, especially on that day. That weekend, I got some extra sleep and started feeling better. I went to bed early that Sunday and had my clothes picked out. The next morning, I made an extra effort, did my makeup, my hair was nicely done. I wore one of my favorite frilly blouses and a new pair of jeans that I bought. That same morning on the train, I anticipated that whatever cycle we were in was broken, and looked forward to seeing the same girl. But she got on wearing that same stained sweater and messy hair. What happened? What was so different about yesterday? Why did she wear something different? So I started thinking about it more, and the only thing I could think of was myself. I was running late and wasn't put together like I usually was. It was like we were polar opposites. Was that it? So I decided to test that theory. The next day I wore leggings and an oversized sweater. My hair was unwashed and pulled into a ponytail, and I skipped the makeup, other than some chapstick. Astonishingly, she looked beautiful and dressed up, wearing a pink skirt and heels with her hair curled. Was this some kind of parallel version of myself? Can no one else see her because of this? Did she have people on her train that could see me? How did we end up on the same train anyways? I had never seen her prior to this incident. I wanted to talk to her, maybe just small talk to see what she might say. Maybe she noticed our similarities too, but I was worried that either she would think I was crazy, talking to some random stranger about being another version of me, or if it was real, what could I mess up from talking to her? So I did the only thing I was brave enough to do. I watched. I watched how I had bad days and she looked stunning. I had good days and she was back in the sweater. But it did do a little good for me, because when I'm having one of those rough days, those days where your shirt just doesn't feel comfortable on you and your hair isn't cooperating, well, I can't help but smile knowing that she probably feels unstoppable. I had something that happened to me in the winter of 2023, and it has definitely given me something to think about, but at the same time gave me a bit of peace of mind. For many years, my sister and I would go to this local coffee shop every Friday and just enjoy our coffee, a muffin, and each other's company. We joked about how the muffin gave us more of a rush than the caffeine some days. We were both married, and I have a young son that was in school by the time we met up. But on the days he was off, he would come with me. My sister and son were almost as close as we were, and I loved it. But, sadly, my sister passed away in a freak car accident. Another car was going way too fast through an intersection, ran a red light, and hit her hard enough to make her car roll. It was an awful, awful time for my family that left me with nothing but questions and an empty space inside me. I was distraught for a very long time. I'm sure a lot of people would have been. Of course, I couldn't fathom going to the coffee shop. I tried for a few months to just get out of the house, but it was too painful. So I stayed away for a very long time. Depression and the pandemic kept me home for almost 3 years, getting out only when necessary, or for the random family gatherings. It was difficult to even do anything for her birthday, but I did it for her. After seeing a therapist, I decided it was time for me to move forward, knowing that she wouldn't want me to stay home and mourn for her. She was far too outgoing and an introvert to allow me to stay home all the time. It's like I could feel her tugging on my arm, like we were teenagers again, her begging me to go with her to a birthday party. So I started going by the coffee shop, the same one that we went to every Friday. I decided it was a good way to still hold on to something close, but also break through the walls that I had built since I lost her. At first, it started with me just sitting up there, not in the same spot that we sat, enjoying a coffee and reading a book, and eventually I was able to do some work up there. I worked for myself, and sometimes I had a lot of paperwork to do, so I took this as a time to get out of the house, have less distractions, and get it done. And the table that we used to sit at was perfect for it. It was in the corner by a large glass window. I could watch the sunrise, feel the warmth on my face, and be out of the way of the people coming and going. Again, it was difficult the first few times, but then afterwards, it felt right. It felt like I was supposed to be there, and it instantly made me more comfortable with it. I expected to have an anxiety attack, like I so often did when I thought about this place initially, or her birthday, but that never happened. Instead, the familiar smell of the coffee, the soft jazz or oldies that they played, and the velvet-covered chairs almost made me feel closer to her, and it comforted me. The more I sat up there, the more I started to notice the others that frequented the coffee shop, including a man who I will refer to as Art. He looked to be in his mid-30s, well-dressed but also casual. He always ordered a dirty chai because I remember thinking I should try that. Never had it before, would highly recommend it if you haven't. He always carried a large leather messenger bag, and then when he found his seat, typically in one of the lounge chairs in the center of the room, he would pull out a pretty battered sketchbook, and a container of various pencils, erasers, and other similar items. I think he may have had charcoal in there too, based on how his hands looked some days. I would catch glimpses of some of the pages in his book when he turned them, and I saw a lot of people, portrait styles. He was clearly very talented, and I remember thinking that it would be really neat to sit somewhere like in a coffee shop and sketch people and things for the day. I noticed he was there every Friday that I was there, and on the random extra days that I started going, he was also there before I even got there, already set up with his drink. I assumed he probably went up there often. While I worked, I would look over at him and see him looking around and back down at his page intently. And one time I even caught him looking at me, but not in a weird or creepy way. In fact, when I noticed him looking at me, he didn't even look away. He got an eye full of whatever it was and then went back down to his page. I thought maybe he was just people watching, but with him furiously sketching away, I wondered if he was possibly drawing me. But there was nothing remarkable about me either, so maybe it was just a theme or reference that he was using. Someone sitting at a desk or something of that sort. One day I had to leave earlier than normal, and I saw him shuffling his papers quickly around when I started packing up. I didn't think anything else about it. I just remember him moving things around, but he wasn't really packing up. It was almost as if he was trying to find something, or open his other book that he had with him searching those pages. Then there was the following week that I went up there. Once again, he was there before me and already hard at work, nose down to his book. I got my drink and parked myself in my normal spot and started into my work as well. I glanced up at him when I noticed him once again moving things around, and he pulled out a different sketch pad. Then he went back to it, occasionally looking over at me. Since this had become a regular thing, I started to become more curious about what he was drawing. I didn't want to be weird, but I wanted to ask him if I could see some of his work because I was intrigued and loved watching people in their groove and working so fluidly, especially when it came to art. Our mother, also a huge artist, instilled in us how powerful art can be depending on the person, so it's always been something that I cherished watching. If I'm not watching your videos, I'm typically watching something artistic. But overall, I decided against it, not wanting to invade his boundaries or make him uncomfortable. I also know how some people prefer to not be disturbed, so I just continued my own work and thought to myself what he could be creating. That was until I was in my own groove, and I noticed the man push the table out and stretch, with a soft smile on his face, as he looked over his work. I went back to my work when the man ripped out a page, stood up, and to my surprise, walked over to me. At my side, he then handed me the page face down and nodded at me. Confused and curious, I flipped the page over. At first, I was marveling at his abilities. This man was truly an artist. It looked like it was all pencil with a little ink for darker lines and some shadows. It showed me sitting at the same table with my laptop out, focusing on the screen. The woman in the picture was wearing a similar shirt that I was wearing last week, and the hair was pulled back in a clip, like I like to wear my own. But I also wasn't alone in the picture. Across from me sat a young woman, her face obscured by a large sun hat, her hand nearly touching mine on the table. The details were incredible, from the bits of hair in my face to the way I tucked my feet under the chair. But the woman sitting across from me was what made my heart drop. I told him it was incredible and that he was a fantastic artist, but then I asked about the woman in the photo, already having an idea. I'll never forget the solemn smile, the kind reserved for sympathy, when he said, "I like to draw the whole picture. Even when some are no longer present, they're still with you." I looked back down at the picture and nearly cried. That was my sister. She loved her sun hats, and had one to match nearly every dress that she owned. I had never seen this man before, and it had been nearly 3 years since I had even been up here with her. How could he possibly know who she was or what she looked like? He asked me who she was, and I explained that it looked like my sister who had died years prior. He looked like he understood. He explained how he liked to help others heal through his work, and explained that my sister sat there with me every week that I was there. Was this why I felt so comfortable there? Because she was with me? I was a big baby at that moment. Big sobs falling down my face, and I'm sure that a few people looked at me, but I didn't care. I had struggled so long to go back to that coffee shop, not aware that my sister was waiting for me, to continue our ritual. He gave his condolences, but then also told me that he hoped that his work may help me, and reminded me that I'm not alone. Not by a long shot. I hugged that man like I had known him for years. He thanked me for allowing him to work. I thanked him profusely, and then he left. I wanted to cry and ask him so many more questions. How could he have known about my sister? He said that he drew what he saw and drew another person with me. If he had moved here recently, there was no way he could have known us. And I highly doubt that he pulled out a news article from a few years ago and read about a random fatal car accident naming my sister. Even if he did, how would he have known that it was my sister? The most he may know is the name the barista called out, which was Kitty, because it's what my sister nicknamed me as a kid, and I always used it. It was easier for her to say that instead of Sissy. I may have had a lot of questions, but at the same time, I didn't really need any answers, because all I could do was smile and stare at the picture in front of me. He clearly saw something more than what I did. He saw what I couldn't. And all those times I felt warm and comforted there, I wonder if it was my sister, sitting with me as we used to, just letting me know that she was still there, ready to pick up where we left off. I have to share this story about my old childhood home because I felt like I was losing my mind when this happened. My family lived in the same house throughout our childhood. We moved into this house when I was a baby, and when my two other siblings came along, we made room for them too. And when I went to college, I would come home to visit my parents in that same home. I knew the ins and outs of that place. The main floor had the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, a bathroom, and a small closet/pantry off the kitchen. Upstairs had 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. The basement was pretty open and empty, other than a spot under the stairs where the washer/dryer hookups were, and my mom had a small laundry area set up there. At least, that's what I always remembered. As an adult, out of college, and out on my own, my parents told us that they were going to retire to Florida. Immediately, I knew I wanted to buy the house from them. As my dad got older, it got harder for him to keep up with maintenance, so the house wasn't in the best shape, but it wasn't like it was uninhabitable. Besides, the market at the time was crazy expensive for anything else, so why not buy something that I could get a discount on and that I already knew inside and out? The first few months were great. I slowly moved my stuff in, after I replaced the carpet and flooring. Once I at least got my stuff in, I started doing more work around the place, just as my dad had shown and taught me. But it was when I started working on the basement that I noticed something was off. When I went to the basement, it was like something was missing. I bought a new washer and dryer that were both front loads. That was different from what my parents had, but the basement itself looked different. But all I could remember about the basement was the laundry area. I looked all over to see if something stood out, but I couldn't spot anything. But then came my weird obsession with counting stairs as I went up and down them. I guess I should mention that, no matter where I went, I have always counted the stairs. I don't know why, but I remember the basement always being 14. I remember this because the stairs leading upstairs to the bedroom had 16, including the base step that curved around. I remember thinking as a kid that the space between the ground floor and upstairs was taller than that from the basement to the ground floor. But when I went back to the basement stairs, there were 15. So I went back and counted. Going down, there were 14, going up, 15. That's just the stairs. I didn't include the concrete basement floor or the ground level floor. I specifically counted the old rickety wooden steps. How could that even be possible? I watched closely as I stepped on each, but my math never changed. 14 down, 15 up. I couldn't sit there and dwell on a rogue step, though, so I set it aside in my brain and moved on, telling myself that it must have been like that as a kid, and that I'm hyper-focusing on it now. But then things only got weirder when my sister came to visit. She didn't live too far away, and she wanted to come see what all I had done to the place so far, so I got some things for us to have a nice lunch and coffee together. We were in the kitchen prepping stuff and snacking when we started reminiscing on things we did as a kid. At one point, she mentioned needing to use the bathroom and joked, asking if she could use the one on the same floor or if she needed to go to the basement. I remember staring at her confused by her comment. We didn't have a bathroom in the basement. They were upstairs and on the same floor. She looked at me strangely and reminded me how Mom would get mad at us for using the bathroom on this floor after swimming because we made the carpet wet. She said that she made us use the sliding door in the kitchen and then use the one in the basement because we wouldn't get the carpet wet. I just remember looking at her funny. What are you talking about? Our bedrooms were upstairs. There are no bedrooms or bathrooms in the basement. She looked concerned. She explained how Dad had built 2 bedrooms in the basement for us. The bathroom in the basement was just a toilet, but he completely redid it, adding an actual bathroom with a stand and shower, and then built the 2 bedrooms for us. She explained how it was just going to be one for me, but she begged to have a bedroom too. She said that we thought it was the coolest thing because we called them our little apartments down there. I did not recall any of this. It didn't make sense. We shared a room upstairs. Our parents had one, and our baby sister had her own room. Why was she remembering something different? She said when I was 12, her 10, they said we needed our own rooms, so he built the rooms in the basement, and they turned the extra room upstairs into an office. But I remembered the office. I remember using our old computer to print out pictures for school. But why couldn't I recall the basement bedrooms? That never happened in my memory. I told her how I remembered Mom making us use the ground floor bathroom so we didn't track water all the way upstairs. But my sister insisted that there was never a bathroom upstairs. So we walked through it together. I showed her the bathroom upstairs. It went our bedroom on the right, the bathroom across the hall, and then our baby sister's and parents' room. She looked so confused as she studied the rooms. And then we went to the basement. I knew then that it wasn't a matter of misremembering. She looked genuinely disturbed, like someone had ripped out a whole memory from under her. She outlined it perfectly. She measured how wide the rooms were and then walked towards the back, explaining where the bathroom was. She even explained how creepy it used to be until Dad had put in a ceiling light and the powder pink carpet. We carefully inspected the concrete, the walls, and the ceiling looking for patches, divots, even color differences, just to prove her theory. To prove that maybe there were walls there or plumbing, but there was nothing. The house was practically handed over to me. There was no time for someone to have come in and tear down all that and then clean it up. So then, how come we had 2 completely different memories? Could that be why the basement felt so weird to me? And do the steps have anything to do with it? Is that 15th step some kind of gateway to a different timeline, where we lived in the room upstairs versus having the rooms in the basement? We were both pretty freaked out about this revelation. We both joked that we were getting old and that our memories were tricking us, so we went back upstairs to enjoy our time together. But deep down, I could tell that she was still thinking about it. After she left, I thought about asking my parents, but to be honest, I don't know if I could stomach asking them. I know it sounds silly, but what would I say if they said they remembered the basement rooms? Yeah, I don't remember that, and the rooms and bathroom down there don't exist anyways. I still have not asked them. I still live in that exact same house, but Instead of being afraid of the basement as a kid, well, I'm afraid of it now. I'm worried that one day I will count 14 steps going up again, and the rooms and the bathroom will once again exist. And if that happens, I don't know how I'm going to explain it to my sister. So that, my friends, was a collection of some strange and scary unexplained stories. Stories that defy explanation, though some of you may have theories, and if you do, please do share them down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. But overall, in my opinion, these stories are just strange and, yeah, they just kind of defy expectations when it comes to reality. So, hopefully, you enjoyed these stories. If you did, please do hit the like button on the video. And of course, if you're new and haven't yet, please do consider subscribing. That'd be amazing of you. You can also leave me a comment, like I mentioned, your thoughts, your theories, or your favorite story, whichever one you want to leave. You can send your stories into astheravendreams.com. Support the channel by joining the memberships or Patreon. Joining either gets you early access to the content and other things, depending on how you sign up. I said content weird there. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, Audible, any other platform that you listen. Check out my book on Amazon, The Insomniac's Experiment. It's a pretty decent book in my opinion. I've been told at least. And yeah, all that good stuff. Lots of good stuff you can do. None of it's ever expected. A lot of it is, well, all of it is always appreciated. So, all said, friends, hope you're having a gorgeous day and hope I see you again here very soon. Until then, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Do not forget it, and please do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.